I'm Paul Rowley,
And I'm Rachel Wagoner.
and welcome to Farm and Dairy's virtual newsletter. We'll be giving you a rundown of all the news this week. Our co-host Liz Parsh is actually out. She's traveling the globe, apparently. So Rachel, our editor, is joining us and seeing what we all do here. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
I think there's an applause button, but I don't. Yay! Wonderful.
That's what I deserve.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'll gladly kick us off. From actually Liz Parsh this week, natural fibers, once the backbone of our clothing industry, are finding their way back into the spotlight. At Ohio State University's College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences, a very important place, a recent event called Farm to Fashion gathered all these farmers and designers and fiber advocates to reimagine a world where the United States produces most of its own clothing. So that was a really fun thing that they did. So right now, nearly 60% of our clothes actually are made from polyester, which is very gross. It's a petroleum-based fiber that sheds microplastics, which we definitely don't need more of, and also pollutes our water. Yes, not hot. But natural fibers like wood, wool, cotton, hemp, and flax, so hot. People have worked with those materials forever, and they're renewable, they're biodegradable, and they're also just deeply connected to the land. So we just love that as well. Ohio is actually home to very passionate fiber producers out there, like Laurel Chauvelin of Bluebird Hill Farm, which is a cool place. She's been raising alpacas there since the late 1990s and turning their fleece into vibrant yarn. And then she's using local plants to like dye them, do like really cool stuff with it.
Nice.
It's also slow work and it's not without its challenges, but she thinks it's very worthwhile, and it certainly is. So here's the rub. So while the supply of natural fibers is growing, the U.S. actually lacks like infrastructure to be able to do much with it and turn that raw material into clothing. So that's too bad. From spinning mills to sewing operations, most of it has been phased out here and moved overseas. In fact, only 2% of clothing that is worn in the United States is actually made here.
Oh, wow.
Kind of staggering, yeah.
Yeah.
But change is kind of stirring. Organizations like the Rust Belt Fibershed, which was founded by twins Sarah Pottle and Jess Boyke, they're planting the seeds of a regional textile economy. So it's very exciting. They're connecting farmers, makers, and crafters and all these communities through hands-on events and educational programs. Jess Boyke actually had this to say about what kind of future that she's hoping to help bring about here, which is that when we're thinking about where our clothes come from, do we want to live next door to a refinery, or do we want farmers, fields, and something that supports our local economy? So that's sort of her mission statement and sort of how she was like, hoping to bring people into the fold of her work that she's doing. So this is a future that she wants to help bring about, that clothing does not come with a carbon cost. Definitely love that. There's still a long way to go. This article explores the need for investment in mills, training for workers, and then also perhaps more importantly, a shift in how we shop. And I could definitely afford to shop at fewer big box stores and things like that. So for more on that, check out the front story on the front page of the paper this week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm up, right?
I guess so.
Okay, I hope I can do this.
Let's go.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the other story on the front page of our paper. It is from managing editor Sarah Welch. Sometimes we let her out of the office and into the field. So this week she wrote about Adolph Tree Farm in Portage County. They just recently joined the Ohio Historic Family Farms Program as a century farm for preserving the last 17 acres of their family's former dairy farm. The Adolph family bought about 90 acres in Suffield Township in 1914 and started a dairy farm.
All right.
The farm was split up by the construction of U.S. Route 224 in the 50s, and then it was split up again in the late 80s when Arnold Adolph, the second generation of the family, passed away.
Wow.
Much of it was sold to neighbors, but one of Arnold's brothers wanted to save some of the family's farmland, so he talked his nephew Tom into buying about 17 acres with him.
Nice.
And so they started planting trees there in 1988, and that's what they're still doing today.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so they sell Christmas trees, shade trees, flowering trees. It's not a really huge operation, but it keeps the land productive.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
So the third, fourth, and fifth generation of the Adolph family run the farm now. There is Tom and Carol, their son Joe and his wife, and their young children, and then Tom's two other sons are involved as well.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So they reached out to us with this story in the winter. They're big fans of Farm and Dairy, so we were happy to be welcomed out there.
Yeah.
And I really like this story personally, just for all the history of it. To be recognized as a century farm, you have to do a ton of research and documentation to prove that your farm has been in the same family on productive farmland on the same parcel for whatever amount of time, a century, 2 centuries.
Yeah, you said
So-
1914?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they also have bicentennial
Oh, neat.
farms. So you could, if your family's been around for 200 years on the same land, so you could be part of that too. So you're going through all these old records and deeds and property stuff, just to prove that you have earned this thing that gives you a little plaque and makes you part of the program.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. So if you want to read more about the family history and what they're doing with the farm now, check it out on the front page this week.
All right. Well, contributing writer Ashley Bunton, she takes us to another one-of-a-kind place, plenty going on there in Ohio, where history, hemp, and hands-on craft all meet, which is the Cannabis Museum.
Wow.
So cool. So it's a sunlit brick building, and inside there, a place that once housed miners, bakers, and brewers. You'll also find fiber artist Isaac Koblenz turning flax and hemp stalks into string the old-fashioned way. So he's really doing it like they've always been doing it. So Koblenz just entering his second year doing fiber demos all live at the museum, which is like really cool. And he's showing visitors how to break down all these like the really tough hemp stalks, like getting in there with a wooden hemp brake, which is a tool that dates back centuries. So very, very long-standing method of working with that stalk. Using traditional tools and also raw plant materials, Koblenz shows how hemp, which is a cousin of cannabis but without the THC, can be spun into usable string, which like sounds fascinating. And then beyond technique, he's also helping to revive something very long buried. So you see, for nearly a century, cannabis in all of its form has been nearly erased from public memory.
Is that true?
It really is, I guess. Museum founder Don Wirtschafter, a longtime advocate and attorney, he opened the Cannabis Museum to shine light on all that lost history, with artifacts ranging from antique spinning wheels to glowing cannabis medicinal bottles, like the uranium kind.
Oh, yeah.
They glow and stuff. It's really cool. The museum's Cannabis Americana exhibit, which is ongoing right now, it even features items from Koblenz's own family, who were generations of Ohio druggists who once made remedies like from cannabis, like corn cures, which I believe is for feet. Just like really neat, but
Kind of gross, but really neat.
Kind of gross, but neat, yeah. So for Koblenz, this work is really personal. He first worked on wool as a toddler with his mom, and today he's building a bridge from that memory and that experience to a growing network of hemp farmers that are all around this area, textile artists and educators in Southeast Ohio. So
Nice.
really doing the groundwork there. And that network is growing thanks to his efforts. On June 8th, the museum will actually host a Southeast Ohio fibershed meeting, which is like really cool. And this is a community group that's focused on locally grown fibers like wool, flax, and hemp. So they're all going to get together and they're going to make some cool stuff. It's a super cool place. And if you want to find out more information about that, check out the story on the auction cover this week paper.
That's great.
Yeah, super fun.
Cool. Okay, so in a little bit of dry legislative news,
We need it though.
I'm going to tell you about a House bill that the Ohio House is considering that would allow carbon capture and sequestration in the state.
Okay.
So CCS, carbon capture sequestration, is where you inject carbon dioxide into underground pore space, presumably to store it forever. It's supposed to be good for the environment and for the climate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Awesome.
Yeah. So whether it actually does that is up for debate.
Yeah.
But House Bill 170 would set up a framework that would allow Ohio to regulate Class 6 injection wells, which are the ones that are used for carbon capture and sequestration.
Okay.
Currently, Class 6 injection wells are regulated by the federal government. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency oversees that program. States can request what's called primacy, which is basically they can ask for the regulatory authority over these wells once they have all the stuff in place in the state to oversee the permitting and inspections and all of that stuff. So right now, there are only 4 states in the entire country that have primacy: North Dakota, Louisiana, Wyoming, and most recently West Virginia. They just got primacy earlier this year.
Nice.
The benefit of having primacy is that the states can get projects moving more quickly than they would waiting for the federal government to approve it.
Okay.
Which then allows them to, get the economic benefits of it more quickly.
Right.
The EPA has been notoriously slow at approving these types of projects for whatever reason. It has been a problem for years now.
Yeah.
So Ohio already has primacy over Class 2 injection wells, which our readers might be familiar with. Those are the ones that are used to dispose of oil and gas wastewater, or brine is what it's often called.
Gotcha.
So this bill is in the House's Natural Resources Committee right now. It's had a few rounds of hearings. It hasn't gone up for a vote before the full committee, but it could soon before legislators like to get stuff done before they go on summer break. So we could see a lot of movement here pretty quick in June. Proponents of the bill say it's going to be a big economic boost for the region because there are currently 5 CCS projects in Ohio before the EPA awaiting approval. They're just kind of hanging out there as the rest of them do. And there are companies out there trying to lease pore space from landowners in Ohio to be able to do these projects. So there could be economic benefits in a couple different ways. But opponents of the bill say that CCS technology is underdeveloped and there are a lot of environmental and public health and safety risks that go along with it. Oh. So we'll see how that goes. The whole thing is explained in detail in Liz's story, and she does a great job at it. So check that out in the F&D section.
All right. I'll have to do that. Also, our own Tammy Gingrich wrote about turtle nesting season in Ohio right now, which is currently underway. We've got females, some weighing over 35 pounds. They're crawling out of the ponds and wetlands to find the perfect place to lay their eggs, which I guess if you've seen them are sort of like ping pong balls. Often that means that they're braving really busy roads to get to where they need to go, and many of them don't make it. So, Rachel, this reminds me, I've been meaning to say this about Cleveland drivers for quite some time, specifically forever. It might be controversial, but y'all cannot drive. So anyway, if you won't look out for each other on the roads, at least look out for the snapping turtles. It's very important that you do that. So snapping turtles are like living dinosaurs. They're really cool animals. They've been around for about 90 billion years, which is like a million years, maybe a million too short.
I mean, once you get up there, what's
pretty
a couple
much
more?
Yeah, come on. Because they spend most of their time underwater, they kind of like are a little bit shy when they come out. They feel very vulnerable. They get really defensive. And yes, they get snappy as well. I certainly can relate to that occasionally. Their aggression is just rooted in fear. On land, they're totally exposed, but in the water, they will flee every time. They don't want anything to do with things. It's kind of like my cat. When company comes over, he'll hide under the coffee table and growl. Gingrich, who is also a naturalist, she has a really great story in her column about one really unforgettable day when a female snapping turtle sort of came by the nature center where she works and really just kind of decided to lay its eggs like right by the door. So she had like a prime site. Yeah, like it's super cool. She filmed this for hours, and the turtle used her really powerful back legs to like gently dig and then lay her eggs there in this like spot. They're very leathery, I guess she described them. So kind of neat. She laid those into the earth and then moved on. So make sure you check the column out. And if you see a woman on the side of the road helping a prehistoric beast cross the road, just slow down, please, Cleveland. I hope you're listening. And just maybe even give a bit of a wave to Tammy while she's helping this creature across the street. Because for them, survivors of millions of years, every crossing really counts. So, yeah. I hope you didn't mind my vendetta against Cleveland drivers.
It's okay. We're going to let it go.
Okay, thanks.
Because you're not from here.
No.
Okay. Okay, another aquatic news, I guess. Yeah. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources recently installed life jacket loaner stations in 32 state parks. I'm pretty excited about this, if you couldn't tell. So this gives people free access to life jackets of all sizes, from infant to adult, so a little tiny baby up to an adult person.
Nice.
So this gives you no excuse not to wear a life jacket now when you're doing outside aquatic recreation. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about when do you need a life jacket, because there are rules around it, and there's just like good rules of thumb. Yeah. So in Ohio, children under 10 need a life jacket if they are in a vessel that is 18 feet or under, which is most kayaks or canoes. And then you also need it if you are on a jet ski or if you're being pulled like in a water ski or a tube by a boat. Good rules of thumb for when you should wear a life jacket is if you're boating alone, if it's nighttime, if the water is rough and fast, if the water is extremely dangerously cold, which would happen, in the spring, winter, and the fall. So basically anytime but summer. Yeah. And also, what's the last one? Oh, if you're not a good swimmer, you should probably
very important.
wear a life jacket. So you could check out the full list of loaner stations online and in the paper this week.
Excellent. Okay. And I think that's it for us. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. To read more about the stories that are in the paper this week, check out your local newsstand or visit farmanddairy.com.
Thanks for having me, everyone. I loved being here.
Hey, where's that applause button? And we'll see you next week.